You know, this technique where you're following the form, and then you'll come back and you'll put another set of lines crossing it, and you'll start building your values by doing these meticulous line, and each line should have meaning and follow the form, and then you follow the form, go in a different way, and you just keep building it up till it starts building dimension. I was a mess. This was my superpower when I was in school, was doing cross hatching. I had practiced it a lot before I got to school because turn of the century and back was all about cross hatching. Like, this was like the main technique in your drawing schools. And you look at some of the old sketches from students, they're just like the most elegant, beautiful cross hatches, that every stroke was perfect and had meaning and built the face. Take some practice, but and then you got the technique I want to go over today is where you put your pen down and you just start drawing, and like every line does follows the contour of the skull. You know, you build it like an Etch-a-Sketch. You know, just one continuous line. And you have to, like sometimes you just have to let your pen float, or you put in like very definite lines without scribbling. And scribbling is just filling it in. There's no form. It's flat. It's boring. You want to, when you're doing semi-blind contour line drawing, you want to do this. Stippling is this. When I was doing T-shirts, when you do hand-built silkscreen T-shirts, each color is built by hand, which they used to do. Photoshop has now gotten rid of that. But some of the old T-shirts, you'll notice, when you wanted to do silk screening, you needed to stipple, because it kept the screen from the silk screen from mortaring against your halftone. I want you to fill up the page as much as possible, like what we did last class. We did, we sized out where we want it to go. So I'm going to do this cow skull up here, or should I do the dog? That dog looks ferocious. The dog or the cow? What do you think? Dog. It's smaller, so I found that like when it's a smaller skull, everybody has a harder time making it fill the space they want it to. So this is where I want you to have, you're going to put line work over this. So you basically need a gestural, you need a structure underneath so that you can hold to the balance. Because one of the things can happen is if you just start drawing here and then just try to fill it in, it goes out of balance. It doesn't balance with the whole thing. So I'm looking for you to like scribble in the bulk of what it is. Like this skull has this really mean roundness, and then it flattens out in the back. It has this swoop to the upper jaw, and then the lower jaw. And I just allow myself to swoop and build, and then I can find points. You want to be able to put in your points of where important items are. Teeth, point, nose, eye, top of the head, point, back of the head. Come back and check, the distances. Does this make sense? I mean, put little circles in there to hold your point so that you can balance this out, so it doesn't look like you're still in high school. You know, you were all graduated from high school, right? You're still in high school?
No, I'm going to ask a question.
Oh, go ahead. No, ask away.
So are we going to be like, should we be doing each individual score? Should we be putting it on the podiums too? Or should we?
Oh, if you want to take a bigger chunk out of this and do the whole thing, yeah. But no, right, I'm wanting you to find individual skulls.
Okay.
And then do individual, first show me this semi-blind contour line, or this contour line drawing. So after you have your points in it, you know, and put in however many points you want to kind of show. And then I think most of you drafted out things pretty accurately. So this is to give you better things about finding where you are in the drawing. So the next thing is to let your pen start floating over it. And it's not a perfectly round eye. As soon as I see anybody drawing a perfectly round eye, I know that you're not looking at it anymore. This is where you come back and you draw the contours of the shapes that you're seeing. And you're like looking really close and try to find the abstractness of it. But then draw in, like if it's a darker area, put your lines in that show the shape and the form. Then come around the edges, then let your pen float a little bit. And I'm using a Sharpie so you can see it a lot easier. Use a felt tip, use your favorite felt tip pen. But now, like I keep looking, I have my form to follow. I'm gonna trust my red lines, and now I can kind of come back in and I'm looking at the abstract shape of each little thing and how dark it is. And I'm making aesthetic decisions the whole time about how to. I look back at this and it doesn't look like anything yet, but don't lose hope. Just keep building your form and your structure. And I'm doing one line across the top, one tight, thin line because it's highlighted and it doesn't need to be a big, bulky, animated line. It needs to be something, and I'm just gonna do one line. I'm not gonna try to overcorrect it or anything. Nobody's gonna see the skull and the line drawing at the same time. Now I get to the teeth. So I'm going to do the upper jaw. I'm just going to draw a line for the upper jaw. And I'm not going to try to draw each individual teeth because it'll draw too much attention to them. So I get my upper jaw in. And this is like when you really focus and you start getting into drawing, you start having background thoughts, I got a leak in my ceiling that's really starting to bug me. It's like, damn it. And you really know if you're in the groove because you'll start obsessing over things in your life. So
I'm going to come along and try to do the bottom jaw. And now I think one of the things that makes this look ferocious is this dark space in here.
I'm gonna put in the ferociousness of the dog. And if you're using a ballpoint pen, this is where it helps to put your board in your lap so that your ballpoint pen or whatever you're using doesn't start drying out. So once I get kind of the main thing in, I'll look at the lights and darks of the skull. And I'm holding my pen back like this. I'm not choking it. I'm not trying to write in cursive.
Any questions?
And the more you practice at doing this, the better you get, you know, and you get, sometimes, this is like a technique I use in my sketchbook all the time when I'm drawing, or when I'm not quite warmed up. It's harder to do this when you're doing demonstration. But yeah, Sharpies kind of bleed through, like felt tip pens tend to bleed through a little bit. I always check, like the 90-pound paper usually doesn't bleed through and handles this stuff pretty well. Okay, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to put my shadows in. Well, the way I'm doing this should be easy to do better than the teacher. So, you guys are in luck. It looks a little better as you get further away. It's like in my mind right now, I'm really wrestling with the way it looks. So I'm kind of... Another thing is I like, so it's kind of going in all directions. And this is not scribbling. This is like putting in I want it to stay fresh. And when I'm crossing over the lines, let's see what happens. This may be a disaster. What do you think? Interesting technique? So, like a lot of times when we did the chiaroscuro, and I put down a tone and then I'm drawing on it, this is kind of like you'll notice in if you look at the details of the skulls that I did, I'm doing this technique over it. Like I put down my lights and my dark, and then I start coming back and I putting in the line work and stuff like that. This is usually a technique I'll use a lot. You know, the next thing I might do, okay, let's say I'm going to do this cow skull. I want to block it in pretty quick, which I'm seeing a lot of good results. I'm seeing a lot of really good underdrawings. Okay, so I'm getting my big eye in there. Cows can see like almost 300 degrees around them. They're a delicious piece of meat. They're herbivores. They're good at, okay, so anyway. So this is where I look I look for the lines. These are going to be my underdrawings, so they basically I just want to bulk them in. So I want you to try this. This is like putting a tone across your whole drawing. Oh, you just feel the back of my arm flopping like an old lady. The old teacher that had the floppy arm. So when I broke it, they detached my muscles and then put my elbow back together and then reattached them. So for about 6 months, I couldn't lift my arm up like this. And it's just, so it feels weird. But all that to say, it feels weird when I'm drawing sometimes. Okay, so then I'm wanting you to the top of the cowl just gets one line because it's got that bright light coming across it, so you don't want to overdo it. So then I want to come back and make my darker spots. And look, this makes like the line work kind of makes like a tone coming across it. I've seen some of you, you're already kind of doing these straight lines, but do them like, I want you to put in a boldness in your drawings. Okay, so then the boldest part's going to be the shadow. It puts it on the ground. See how I'm changing my angle a little bit each time? So now that I've gotten my bigger parts, now I'll come back and do more of my details. I'm changing my direction a little bit. To make it look like it's impossible to do, or but you see how I'm like getting in. And sometimes, like when I'm doing my own illustrations and stuff like that, I'll put in too many lines and then I'll paint in white. But you see how the bigger lines kind of give it a direction and movement. As opposed to like just overly, putting in these really tight details and designs and stuff like that. Make it move. Get your drawing to move and have some structure to it. Like I would continue doing this and start getting tighter with my cross hatching. Does that make sense? Yeah, because you got lines going in, but you're like holding them in. You've moved to the final part where you're just putting in your final little bitty tiny lines. And you really, it helps to just get these movements in there.